Hey y'all, welcome back to the party. It's your girl BrittReacts, and today we are reacting via a kind suggestion to George Carlin's American Dream, What George Meant to Me. Let's see what they have to say.
George Carlin. He was never not in the discussion of greatest comedian ever.
Smart. George is the smartest.
Smartest man I'd ever met.
You watch a George Carlin bit, you know he's not riffing.
He was genius at making you laugh and changing your mind.
He was an avatar for anti-corruption.
Like a truth machine.
My world.
That's such a statement. He was an avatar for anti-corruption. Think about that. Think about that. And also the statement, he had a way of making you laugh and changing your mind. It's really not comedy. It's really not comedy. It's one of those things you're like, wait a minute. Like, I just had an epiphany kind of thing. These opening statements, and also that like very quick scroll through of photos just to show you like the length of his career. I don't think I've gone back as far as like his career goes, like his earliest days on stage, but I mean decades upon decades upon decades. It's wild.
He was an avatar for anti-corruption.
Like a truth machine.
My worldview was really shaped by Carlin.
He found injustice offensive, kind of like a biblical prophet.
I want to say something. He was so funny. Why did I like him? He was so fucking funny.
I think that was Bette Midler that said he was kind of like a biblical prophet. I know he, in the end, I don't know if he began his career as an atheist, but I know in the end he was very strong in his atheist beliefs. Or maybe I shouldn't use the word atheist. I just know that he had a lot to say and a lot of questions about the Bible, respectfully and understandably. But I think it's interesting that she chose to say that he was like a biblical prophet, because sometimes the right message comes from people that don't even like intend for it to be like a biblical message or anything like that. You know, I don't think he ever sought out to be a prophet, but his messages were so loud and right that it did end up being that way. I think that's a beautiful thing, you know? He didn't necessarily have to believe in that, but he did really great work. And at the core of most religions, that's all that's really asked of you, is at the end, when you leave this world, that you leave behind really good work.
It's a weird thing with somebody as good as George, where even if you haven't seen a lot of comedy, you just instantly know that you're seeing something special. Like, whatever this is, this guy is one of the best that has ever done it.
First thing you notice in someone else's house is you don't quite feel 100% at home. You know why? Someone else's shit is on the table. Have you noticed that their stuff is shit and your shit is stuff? Get it off. Get that shit off of there and let me put my stuff down.
You know, I'm the opposite. I can't stand stuff on my table at my house. I'm a very, very neat person. Like, my house is always neat. Since like people would come over when I had like a toddler and they'd be like, how is your house so clean? I'm like, my toddler doesn't pay rent here. My house is clean the way I like it. And my daughter grew up, and now at 8 years old, she knows I like things a very particular way. My husband knows. But if I go to someone else's house and their house maybe isn't as neat, I'm very like, I don't care. I'm not super judgmental. It's your house. Like, that's your stuff on your table. Like, I'm like the exact opposite of that. But I love this stuff bit. It was, I want to say, the first bit I ever watched of George, and it wasn't this particular one, but the same bit.
Get that shit off of there and let me put my stuff down.
There is a Tonight Show that George did. He does the set. He
How
goes
young
over,
he
sits down with
was.
Johnny.
Oh
Johnny
my
compliments him.
God.
He says, oh, great stuff. And
So
George goes,
young.
I didn't feel quite in control of that one. And when I was young and I saw that opened my eyes to a window of, oh, that was a performance. I didn't know any of that.
Wow.
He was a gift given to me by my father. One day he brought home an album, and he said, do not let your mother know that you have this. Nobody was allowed to curse in our house, but George Carlin was allowed.
All I could think of was shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and piss, man.
And I remember in that moment going like, that's what I want to be for a living. Not like I want to be a stand-up, but I want to be somebody who could curse in my house and get away with it.
Don't you think it's just a little bit strange that Ronald Reagan had an operation on his asshole and George Bush had an operation on his middle finger, huh? What are these two men trying to tell us?
You know, I'm a child of immigrants, and my parents have such a deep reverence for America and what it represents. And George was the first person to say, just take a look behind.
George busted that wide open. He's like, here's the real truth. I love all of, I love this. I love this.
And George was the first person to say, just take a look behind the curtain, buddy. My dad would deeply disagree. He would laugh. He would disagree. And I would kind of look at him and be like, but what he's saying is true, right? And my dad would be like, yeah, it kind of is.
There's just enough bullshit to hold things together in this country. Bullshit is the glue that binds us as a nation. Where would we be without our safe, familiar American bullshit?
The thing that strikes me the most when I think of George Carlin, he never strayed from his authentic self. Once he discovered his authentic self.
For me, that was always one of the things I think about in my own career is like, I think so many times as comics, we're waiting for the audience to give us feedback. But the message that I got from Carlin is like, no, you determine who you are on stage. Dress how you want, say what you want to say.
By the way, I'm not trying this stuff out on you. I'm not trying it out. I don't do that. The audience doesn't really figure into my plans. Here's the way I look at it. I'm here for me, you're here for me, and no one's here for you.
Love that logic. That's sensational logic. Also, when your like content is very matter of fact, you don't have room for thoughts like that. Like, what are they gonna think? Like, you do have to just kind of be like, this is what it is. But I love that thought process. I'm here for me. You paid to come see me. Why would I be concerned with what you think? That's quite literally none of my business. Love it. Love it, George.
I'm here for me, you're here for me, and no one's here for you.
I remember he had a great clip on Conan saying, I can't come on TV and say asshole, and they bleeped it out. But I can come on here and say whole ass. And he was like, whole ass, whole asshole, 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 ass. So he was kind of saying it, and they didn't bleep any of it out.
I think what's dope about Carlin,
That's so funny.
He worked around it and still was saying the things he wanted to say and being poignant and being critical about the system, America, and what was going on.
Is this the young, I didn't realize she was like a comedian. I think it just said Sam Joy. She was just in that movie You People with Jonah Hill and Lauren London on Netflix. Is that her? I feel like that's her. She had like hair in the movie. Is that her, y'all? Let me know in the comments.
Being poignant and being critical about the system, America, and what was going on.
I just liked how...
Maybe not.
What a genius brain he had, but he would still be that silly.
Hi there, how are you?
Now that I've been doing stand-up close to 30 years, when I go back and watch his clips, I'm watching it beyond what he's saying. I'm actually watching where he holds the mic, what the joke was before, how it ties together, and then listening to the crowd and how that all interacts.
There is nothing wrong with the planet. Nothing wrong with the planet. The planet is fine. The people are fucked. The planet isn't going anywhere. We are.
I love this one.
Pack your shit, folks. We're going away.
His ability to do fugue-like explorations of an idea. I'd say that's something that I lifted purely from Carlin, stylistically, when I first worked for Jon Stewart. Like, there's this thing that happens in the world, there's a comedic explication of it, and then what's the logical extension of this insane thing?
Now, this next piece of material is real simple. It's called free-floating hostility.
I think he created for comics like the scientific method. Like, his methodology is something that I can feel in my own mind when I'm breaking certain things down. And that, I think, really influenced the...
Sheesh. I think one of my favorite things is when people can really articulate how they feel really well. And I think all of the performers and comedians in this documentary are just doing such a good job of like giving him his proper flowers and explaining exactly what he did for them. And I think sometimes people just like, it's a lack of being able to formulate the words, or, you know, like not really thinking wholeheartedly on it. But these people, you can tell, are truly impacted by this man, and they've thought about it and for a long time sat with like what he has done for them. That was such a just gorgeous thing to say about somebody.
Mind when I'm breaking certain things down. And that, I think, really influenced the processes of The Daily Show.
Carlin created all these foundational principles that my entire generation still uses to this day. He would have a raw vomit, then he would have another piece of paper that's kind of more refined. Then he would have the act itself, word for word. And I still implement that method. Every single one of my specials, verbatim, is written out.
You have this counterculture icon. What you don't realize is he's an incredibly studious, really disciplined professional craftsman. It's so often when you're in a creative pursuit that you think infrastructure or setting up a system is the antithesis of comedy or inspiration or creativity or any of those things. And the lesson from him is like, actually, that's the opposite.
Even though so true. It's so true. Like, that's so true. He really was like where comedy and truth resided. And if you think about comedy, you wouldn't necessarily think that to be true, but George proved it so. Yikes. I love this. I love this. I would love to see the whole thing.
Lesson from him is like, actually, that's the opposite.
Or is this the whole thing? Because it says featurette. I wasn't sure if this was like a piece of the documentary. I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments.
Any of those things. And the lesson from him is like, actually, that's the opposite.
Even though his mind was at this other level, he was like a regular guy. He was a regular person. The work ethic was like, you know, like blue-collar guy. Then when I met him, he was just like that. He was just like that. He was completely real. It's rare, you know, to meet their idols and have them be nice, cool, regular people. Hey, Stephen. Hi, George.
I dislike and despise groups of people, but I love individuals. And so cumulatively, I have gotten the feeling that I'm in this big family.
We got to know each other during that time period, which was probably 97, 96, 97. But I think, you know, in some ways, I never got over idolizing.
Oh,
he was not an intimidating person. Like, he didn't hold that over you. He was really open. But I do imagine it can get tedious, you know, eating lunch with people who are like this. Like, to you, I'm friends with George Carlin. We shared a sandwich, like friends. And to him, I'm sure it's just lunch. I had to eat.
I had to eat. Yeah, that's beautiful to think about from his perspective. Like, he was hanging out with an idol. Could you imagine? That's wild.
Came to work with us on Dogma, and you know, that for me was career high. I introduced my idol to my dad, and you know, that was the guy without whom I wouldn't have known my dad as well as I did. When my dad met George Carlin, I saw a version of my father that I'd never seen in my life.
Amazing.
I saw a fucking fanboy. You know what I'm saying? Like, my father always carried himself with a certain amount of dignity and shit. But at George, he was like, we watch everyone. I gave the boy your albums. I'm the reason you're in. Like, happy memories.
That's so beautiful.
So when George died, I'll be honest with you, it was, you know, it was kind of like losing dad again.
Oh my God.
I sent him a note about his last special because I loved it. And we got on the phone and we were joking about death. And a couple of people had just died, and he was saying, gee, I wonder who the third one's gonna be. And it turned out to be him.
Oh, man.
And, but getting to talk with him on the phone towards the end was, amazing. He was so mythical to me.
He's one of the few comics that I thought the trajectory of his career was just sort of like this the whole time. My favorite stuff that he did are his last 3 specials.
Yeah, that's good.
When I hear that it was too dark at the end, I don't agree. I think it was the final battle, and I think that he won.
You show me a hospital that's on fire and people on crutches are jumping off the roof, and I'm happy.
People thought it was too dark at the end. I guess I'm assuming maybe he was speaking about death, like they said, which I just think is a hard thing for people to talk about. People don't want to talk about it, but it's inevitable for every single one of us, which I know is George's like big thing. It's like, why don't you want to talk about something that happens just like everyday life happens, you know? That's an interesting thought.
You show me a hospital that's on fire and people on crutches are jumping off the roof, and I'm happy.
I saw him as this Jeremiah, yelling to the 4 winds. Lear. It was fantastic. Fantastic.
For me, when I go back and I watch Carlin and I watch those older clips, in a weird way, it's kind of relieving to know the world has always been confusing and fucked up.
Right. This is so
I actually feel less alone.
It's like, you mean to tell me this stuff was going on back then? I agree with him so much on that. Like, every time I watch something, I'm like, wow, this aged well, didn't it? Or maybe it didn't. I don't know, but it's still very relevant today. Like, I learned that from him, honestly, like not realizing that a lot of the issues that people bring up today are the same exact issues that people had then. Just there's more awareness and more accessibility to it. It's crazy.
And fucked up. I actually feel less alone. His comedy and his analysis just allows me to make sense of a world I do not understand.
Absolute legend, everybody's friend, the world's uncle, the world's grandfather, the older he got, the world's conscience.
People sometimes say, are you trying to make people think? I say, no, that would be the kiss of death. What I want to do is to let them know I'm thinking.
Wow. What I want to do is to let them know I'm thinking. What a beautiful, like, final word on that. Like, he never made that his job to make people think. He just made it his job to continue to think and grow and share it. Beautiful. I really enjoyed that, and I hope you did too. Go have the day you deserve. Peace.